Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to a brand new edition of the Lashing Out Podcast on the Nittany Sports Now Network. My name is Jarrod Prugar, and I'm joined by my good friend and co-host Kevin Quigley. Kevin, Penn State wasn't in action this weekend, but most of the Big Ten was, and it was an up and down weekend for Penn or for the Big Ten, and that's exactly why Penn State needs to be kind of wary of some things moving ahead.
Yeah, and a good weekend for Penn State to be off. There's a lot of great college football. I had nothing planned for my Saturday after a 10-mile run Saturday morning, which is an awful way to start your weekend. Wouldn't recommend it again. But, I got to watch 12 football games yesterday because it's, multi-view all day long. And yeah, some crucial things in the Big Ten happen. Iowa started off the weekend Friday night beating Rutgers and Piscataway, and then
Scoring 38 points.
And then big for Iowa to do that. But then, we had picked a couple games in the Big Ten happening on Saturday, and neither of them went the way that we thought they would.
No, Nebraska and Michigan was a really tough contest. And Nebraska just didn't have enough for them at the end. Illinois, Indiana certainly wasn't how we expected it to be. Indiana boat raced Illinois. Illinois was playing with some fire. They took advantage of some Duke miscues. The ACC is an absolute tire fire, and we'll talk more about that probably in the second segment. But man, Indiana was ready to play, and they showed out and showed up, and they hung 63 on the Fighting Illini.
Yeah, and I just want to just circle back to that Nebraska game. Like, Nebraska had everything that they could to win that game, and they just fell up short. And this is the critical year for Matt Rule. This is his third year with the program. Dylan Raiola, I think he's a true junior at this point in time. They lose by 3. The first 2 drives of the game, man, they looked really impressive. They were a little bold in their strategy, but they wanted to go down, be aggressive. It was 4th and 2, I think, at the 5 or 6 yard line. They get stopped, and for a large portion of the game, Nebraska was outgaining Michigan. They were behind on the scoreboard. Dylan Raiola throws a tipped pick 6. That's the margin of the game. 1 tipped pass and then 1 4th down that just doesn't go converted for. So, I mean, realistically, they're 2 plays away. I think their run defense is still a problem. I think they're still very much in that lower second tier of the Big Ten, I think is what you could call it. I think Penn State, Ohio State, Oregon, those are your top 3 teams this year. Thought Illinois was maybe on the fringe of that top tier, but very much now maybe in the 3rd tier of the Big Ten. But I was really hopeful for Nebraska. I think Bryce Underwood is getting more comfortable at the college level. He's played 4 games now at this point in time, and a couple big road contests for him. So, they're 1-1 in that, right? They lost to Oklahoma. Big road games, loses the first one, is victorious in the second one. So I think it's good experience for him. I think in a couple of years, he might be a problem in the Big Ten. If Penn State's going to play them in the next couple of years, that might be a little bit of an issue. But exciting game to start off the weekend for the Big Ten, because wasn't a lot of good early contests in the day. So
September Maryland showed up at Wisconsin with a 17-point win over the Badgers, and I think that's huge. I mean, Maryland typically is great to start the year, but then they typically fall apart as the season wears on. But I mean, for Nebraska, that's a school that is mired in losing, and when you have a culture that involves a lot of losing, and that's not unusual for a school that used to be a perennial power year in and year out for the Huskers. But those are the games that you lose to Michigan because you kind of expect to lose. What all it takes is one mistake, and Michigan's a program that has a history of winning, and they've shown that. They did it with an interim coach because Sharon Moore was suspended or serving one of his suspended games. But then you look around the rest of the Big Ten, Oregon State. It was close to start, and then the Ducks, just destroyed Oregon State from there. Notre Dame handled Purdue with ease, though. Notre Dame's got a lot of issues defensively right now. USC in some late night Big Ten action. Big Ten After Dark. They beat Michigan State in a game that nobody was awake for by 14. And then Washington throttled Wazoo in the Apple Cup by 35.
Yeah, Michigan State made it competitive. I didn't realize that game kicking off at 11 p.m. is criminal. Like an 8 p.m. West Coast start, like that's not conducive to the Big Ten audience. Sorry, just looping back to Nebraska one more time, just because I just have their schedule pulled up. Their next 4 games: Michigan State, Maryland, Minnesota, Northwestern, very winnable. They have USC at home, which USC looks strong. I think Michigan State was a little bit more competitive game than they probably wanted it to be. Road trip to UCLA and then at Penn State. So really, I mean, they have a realistic shot. Let's say they drop it to both USC and Penn State. Like they're a realistic 9-3 team. So exciting stuff for, I mean, what a good program turnaround there. And then, just my biggest surprise of the weekend, we've mentioned it, Illinois at Indiana. Holy cow. I don't know if Indiana's defense is just that good or Illinois' offense just stinks on ice, but Illinois could do absolutely nothing. Game kind of got flipped on its head early when they had that muffed punt that ended up getting returned for 6 for Indiana. I think Illinois responded with a touchdown, pretty dramatic fashion by a pretty big play right after that, but then nothing. I mean, I think Indiana – was it Indiana that set a program record for sacks yesterday?
I'm sure.
I mean, they were just all over it. 7 sacks yesterday for Indiana. Like that's just no time for Mr. Luke Altmaier.
They outgained them by over 408 yards. They had 31 first downs to 9. You know, you want to talk about the definition of just getting a team to quit and give up. Man, that's exactly what Indiana did. That's not typical of Illinois. I think this is a good time for them to have a wake-up call. Looking at, the Illini schedule, let's be real. They got USC coming up. Then they're at Purdue. Luckily they host USC, but they're at Purdue, home against Ohio State, at Washington, Rutgers,
that could be
Maryland.
A loss. After yesterday, I mean, that could be a loss. Like at Washington, right. I mean, they could lose 3 out of their next 4 games.
It is so difficult to see how things are going because these early season tests, we really let's be real. Western Illinois, Duke, Western Michigan. Duke is not a team that is in good shape right now. They were really good last year. I don't think they're that good this year. And we're going to talk about in the second segment. The ACC is not good. They are just flat out not good. And I strongly, wholeheartedly believe that right now. So it's so tough to see what teams are good right now, and that's kind of where we're at as we gear up for the Big Ten slate for Penn State. They haven't really been tested. Their defense has been lights out. But again, you've played Nevada, you've played FIU, you've played Villanova. So I mean, it just hasn't really all been put together. But again, there are some serious opportunities to really make a name for themselves, and they've opened up as 3.5-point favorites over Oregon. But we're going to preview that game probably later this week.
Yeah, and I really like the way the Penn State schedule goes. Like this bye week, like you hit those 3 games back to back to back. Excuse me, real rapid fashion. There's not a lot of turnover. The offense is sputtering. Like there's not been a lot of time to fix it because you're just running into the next game install. So you get those 3 weeks of figuring out what the hell is wrong with the offense. And, maybe what can we clean up on the defense? And you get 14 days before arguably what's going to be the biggest game of the season, right? Like this, if they win this game, Ohio State matters a lot more. If they lose this game, Ohio State matters that much
even more. Yeah, right.
So
so I mean,
this can really set the tone for the season. So I liked having that little bye week action in there, and just seeing what else went on in the Big Ten. Like I just feel like the conference kind of got flipped yesterday. Like USC is probably not as good as people thought they were, which yeah, but it is what it is. But I think Illinois is the big surprise. I think Nebraska has a legitimate shot to probably be 9-3, which I mean that's a 18th, 17th, 18th ranked program in the nation if you're 9-3 by the end of the season. So even if your 3 losses are against very good ranked Big Ten opponents. So, no, just fun, exciting day in Big Ten football. Fun, exciting day of college football yesterday, and I was happy to sit back and watch and not be stressed by Penn State's offense.
Yeah, I threw on the multi-view and it did the same thing you did all day, and that is such a great life. I am very looking
it's
forward
awesome.
to my impending retirement from beat writing and beat reporting. Like just being able to sit there and watch games and not be stressed about it, but just like, hey, this is what's going on. And I know you and I texted back and forth throughout. That made it that much better. But we're going to talk about what happened around the rest of the country when we come back for the second segment of the Lasching Out Podcast on the Nittany Sports Now Network. Welcome back to the second and final segment of the Lasching Out Podcast on the Nittany Sports Now Network. He's Kevin. I'm Jarrod. Kevin, listen, in our efforts to improve things and for me to get some more confidence going into the week, I mentioned to you that we should talk about our picks, mainly because I believe it was another week of me beating you.
Yeah, 3-2 this week. Pretty bad. I mean, for us to get two games wrong, two of the same game wrong, it's pretty tough. Utah let me down this week. I really thought they had something going on there. Being in Rice-Eccles Stadium, Texas Tech's quarterback gets knocked out of the game. The Bear Morton. It's actually Baron Morton, but they called him the Bear. And Devin Dampier just kind of piddled in his pants. Will Hammond came in for Texas Tech and just, not my best pick, but I was really going to ride that wave of Utah Utes. Ole Miss took down Tulane. That was just intriguing just to see what the group of five would do. I think Tulane made it close there for a bit, but Ole Miss, oh, never mind. Never close at all. That was the wrong game.
No, it was ugly.
That was tough look for Tulane there. Nebraska, we picked them over Michigan, which of course did not happen, but I mean, that's probably one of the games of the weekend. Mizzou, South Carolina, we both picked Mizzou, but South Carolina made that interesting. And if it's not for an 11-point fourth quarter from Bo Perbula, I don't know. Like that game was tough, and I think that's probably the best South Carolina's looked all season long.
Right.
That was a gritty win by Missouri, who are now ranked finally. Or no, they were ranked this week. Sorry. And then we both picked the Illini over the Hoosiers, which, yeah. So you're now up 3 games in 4 weeks.
That's what we like to hear, Kevin. That's why we want to do this now on Sundays when we record, just so, and listen, let's be real. It makes me feel a lot better about my life knowing that I am a Dallas Cowboys fan and they got absolutely destroyed by the Bears. So yeah, any wins I can get in football, I want to have.
Yeah, you need them early and often.
Yeah, it's going to be ugly.
Speaking of winning early and often, somebody who did not really impress and who have impressed throughout the season so far is Miami. Looked awful against Florida in the rain. The game was only an 8.5-point spread. I don't understand that because Florida absolutely stinks.
Florida's defense is legit. I will give Florida's defense all the credit in the world, but their offense is abysmal.
Their offense is terrible, but Miami's offense has also looked spectacular because Notre Dame has a decent defense, we think. Purdue would probably say otherwise.
Notre Dame's defense is not good.
But Miami still hung, 45 points on them? No.
On South Florida, yes. It's
49.
Yeah.
Sorry.
But that was an ugly game. If we remember week 1, that was still pretty disgusting. Like, that was not a pretty game.
But Miami's offense has just looked like really competent. Like Carson Beck, can't stand him, but he looked good this season, and I think he only threw for 160 yards. So I don't understand how Miami has jumped Penn State in the rankings. I don't get it.
That Notre Dame win isn't as good. South Florida win isn't. In Florida at the beginning of the year, okay, you rattle off a win against number 6 Notre Dame, a ranked South Florida, and potentially a ranked Florida team. Okay, I'll give you that. But that Florida team is not good. They have 1 win. South Florida is South Florida. I mean, that's they're playing a good brand of football, but Notre Dame is not what we thought they were. And then the other game is Bethune Cookman. So I mean, it's just one of those situations. But yeah, I don't know how you jump them right now. I mean, again, USF hasn't really been challenged since they beat Florida, but again, Florida isn't good. Like, and then across the ACC, it's still not any prettier. Clemson's mucking it up, and it is a dire time in South Carolina.
Yeah, tough scene in the upstate. Dabo's now 1-3 this year. Just it's not good. I'm kind of basking in it a little bit. I just feel like vindicated of like calling out early in the season that Clemson is not good. I don't know if Cade Klubnik is a Heisman front runner, and here we are with a team that can't move the ball, lose by 13 at home to Syracuse after a bad loss to Georgia Tech last week. Like, it's just things are bad in the upstate. The other Death Valley, like, it's now Death Valley because the Tigers are dead. Like,
Yes.
1-3 it's
and
tough scene.
And this is what happens when you don't adapt to the game. Dabo, I think, was stubborn and adapting to this new game in the transfer portal. And he took pride in not having to hit the portal. But listen, you see Penn State embrace it. I don't know their NIL situation, but I would imagine it's probably not great.
No, I wouldn't think so. Like, Clemson's not a very well-off area. I mean, it is the South. Like, there's a lot of old money down there, but
it's not it's in the middle of nowhere in South Carolina.
It's the middle of nowhere, and the school was small for a while. Like, the school is only just now getting big. Like, it was covered in that 15 to 17,000 enrollment. I think it got into the low 20s when I was there, and it's starting to get a little bit bigger. But yeah, the alumni base just isn't there for Clemson. So yeah,
right.
It's tough.
And you look at the rest of the ACC. Listen, I don't know that Florida State is any good. They beat a down Alabama program week 1, and now they think that they're back. They're number 8, I think, now, 9 in the top 25. They'll get a test against Miami, not this coming week, but next week. But man, they were god awful last year, but now they're back. So you just kind of look at around the ACC, and you got Clemson. It's terrible. Boston College and Wake Forest, we kind of expected that. Georgia Tech is solid. Q's is solid. I think. They dismantled Clemson.
You got to look out. You got to look out for Syracuse. Sorry to cut you off. Steve Angeli was lighting it up for the Syracuse Orange yesterday and goes down with a non-contact knee injury. If anybody's watched, it was the Achilles. I haven't been near my phone, so there it is, torn Achilles. Yeah, so maybe Syracuse's season flips on its head, but feel bad for the guy because he was balling out, and I thought he's probably one of the budding superstars in the nation of a quarterback he's got to have 2 or 3 years left, and obviously he's going to probably get a medical red shirt out of this one, but so he's got at least 1 or 2 more seasons in college to start. So really thought that he could.
Oh, this would have been the 4th game, so technically I think he might be able to redshirt.
Yeah, because it's only this would be this 4th game of the season. So yeah, your undefeated teams in the ACC are Georgia Tech, Miami, Florida State, and Louisville. I don't know if I've seen a lot out of Louisville.
Yeah, Miami, Florida State, and Louisville have yet to play a conference game. Georgia Tech obviously had theirs. So I mean, it is what it is when it comes to stuff like that. SMU is not where they were last year. They got beat by TCU in the Iron Skillet, which is also the Platypus. Or no. That was the Oregon State game. That was the Platypus for the Platypus Trophy, which is fun. That was the Civil War. But yeah, I mean, the ACC is what it is. Big 12, I think, had a really big week. They had a lot of success. So I mean, we just don't know what teams are made of. It's still early, and teams truly haven't yet been tested. And that's kind of where, things can go astray here for anybody that's not playing I mean, you look at why I don't. Again, we talked about it. We don't really understand why Penn State, and got jumped. I mean, they didn't play, so I mean, I guess that's probably why. But again, one of the things they always say is you don't get punished for not playing. There's nothing that Miami has done that has warranted me thinking that they deserve any sort of first place votes for the top 25. But Oklahoma's got a first place vote too. So what are we watching?
Yeah, I think the SEC is going to be very competitive. I'm going to get to that.
The SEC is going to hurt themselves. Like they will just run themselves into the ground.
It will, but I think we're going to be in for a good season in the SEC. I mean, I think we always are. Like, the games are always competitive. The teams are always. I mean, there's usually one or two clear cut, but the rest of it is pretty easy. Is pretty evenly matched. I just pulled up Georgia Tech's schedule. Georgia Tech might be undefeated until Thanksgiving. Wake Forest, dub. Virginia Tech's dumpster fire. That's a win.
They beat Wofford.
At Duke. Syracuse without Angeli. At NC State, who's nothing this year. Boston College and Pitt. That's their schedule until they play Georgia.
Oof.
Georgia Tech might be undefeated until 11/28. So they're probably in the ACC title game if they're undefeated.
I mean, that probably makes sense.
But I mean, is Georgia Tech going to be the third or fourth ranked team in the country just because they're undefeated in the ACC against that schedule?
No.
But I mean, they are, right? If they're undefeated by Thanksgiving, they are going to be ranked in the top 5, and it's going to be the Florida State Jordan Travis year all over again, where it's eh.
And they the Haynes King, who will be going for a Heisman.
Yeah, this could be a fun year if I'm a Yellow Jackets fan.
Right.
But the ACC looks. I mean, the SEC looks good. Georgia, we don't know what they are. A&M's going to be fun, which I hate saying. I think A&M is going to be a fun team to watch. Ole Miss, Oklahoma, I think is John Mateer might be the Heisman front runner right now in the SEC.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
I think he's the front runner right now, which props. I mean, second guy to come out of Washington State to transfer into a big time program and be a Heisman front runner 2 years in a row. So cool stuff.
Yeah, it's just, again, we are 4 weeks into the season, so it's so hard to gauge again where teams are at. Penn State obviously has the rest of their schedule coming up, and to touch on that, before we go, you've got Oregon, then you've got you got Northwestern, Iowa, then a bye again. So we talked about this when we previewed the season, just how the season breaks down. 3 games bye, 3 games bye, and that's huge. Whenever you're able to break that down and be able to regroup heading into this game on November 1st, especially. But first, obviously this week it's finally a whiteout, and again we're going to talk about that later this week. But it's finally a whiteout that West Shore home field at Beaver Stadium deserves. And that's what makes the special game days in Happy Valley. There's still a very impressive slate of games this week, that we'll be making our picks later this week as well. But, it's finally the whiteout that Penn State and Penn State fans deserve, which is huge as well.
Yeah. The Indiana game after the Ohio State game, after a road trip to Columbus where you could potentially have 2 losses, and now you got Indiana coming to town. The schedule, the stakes for this weekend's whiteout against Oregon, I mean, this is probably some of the highest stakes that they've had in a couple of years. Last year against Washington meant nothing. That was just, it is what it was. That wasn't a chance. So, and then, you get the Ohio State noon game, which kind of takes the breath out of it. But a critical, meaningful 3-6 matchup, 7:30 p.m. kick on a whiteout. Nothing better.
Yeah, and listen, again, I don't quite understand why Oregon fell out of the top 5 after last week. I mean, maybe it's because they only scored 34 at Northwestern, which is a tough pick. But I mean, we looked at the beginning of the season, how like where Penn State was in the national championship picture, and teams like Texas were up there, Clemson. Texas is not who we thought they were. Arch Manning is not who people said he was, which is not unsurprising because this kid hadn't played. There's a reason why he didn't play over Quinn Ewers. I mean, it's that to me, it's as simple as that. But Clemson was supposed to be a national title contender, and they have had more lightning delays than wins this year, which is crazy.
I mean, Kate Klubnik was supposed to win the Heisman this year,
right? And he hasn't sniffed it.
Like this ain't happening. Not that
right.
Drew Aller looks anywhere close
right.
to Heisman.
By all means, right. I mean, and again, Penn State has not had a great schedule by any means. Again, but there's nothing you can do to fix that other than maybe playing tougher opponents. But you can't really, predict what teams are going to be good 5-10 years down the road when college football is ever evolving. But the big thing is, it's a big opportunity for Penn State this week, not just to prove to themselves, that they can get this done, but to prove to the rest of the country they're for real. That to me is the biggest thing. A win here pushes them, I think, probably to number 2, but right back to where they were last week, depending on what Miami will be on a bye. So, I mean, such is life, but that's kind of where things are for right now. And it's going to be an interesting week throughout college football to kind of see where everything's at.
Honestly, whenever Oregon might bump them to number 1.
It might.
That would be the best win in the country this year.
The way that it seems now, I think that you're right. I think it would be. And again, we're going to talk a lot about this later this week, hopefully on my end at least. Oregon, they're up. Penn State is a 3.5-point favorite over Oregon. Penn State wins games it's supposed to win. That's the James Franklin way. So we'll talk more about Oregon. We'll talk more about what's going on in the rest of the country later this week. For Kevin Quigley, this has been Jarrod Prugar. We thank you as always for listening to the Lasching Out Podcast on the Nittany Sports Now Network.